If you're struggling with tracking the recruitment process within your business, maybe you're using Excel spreadsheets or things written down somewhere, and you want a consolidated place to manage the recruitment process from start to finish, all of the jobs associated with each of the candidates, and also employee onboarding as well, then this is the video for you. This is pretty much everything I've learned working with businesses for the past 5-6 years, implementing candidate recruitment systems just like this. So we're going to be using a platform called Monday.com. If you haven't got the platform, you can click the link below to sign up for a 14-day free trial. It's entirely up to you, or just search Monday.com. And then if you'd like help from us to set up this for your business, check out the link below as well. We would love to help. But otherwise, let's get started. So as you can see here, I am in our example Monday.com system. Now, like I said, if you haven't got the platform already, feel free to sign up. I don't care if you use my link or not. I'm not too fast. But this is a great tool for this process, and I'm going to show you why. So just stick with me throughout the video. We're going to escalate on levels of complexity throughout the video as well. So we'll start with the real basics, keep it super simple, and then we can get more and more complicated as the video continues. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and add our first board. So we'd press the plus button in the top left-hand corner here, and we're going to go ahead and add a board. And I'm going to call this candidates. Very simple. You can call this, I don't know, potential employees, candidates. My brain's a bit foggy this morning, so I'm sure there's a suitable word for it. The privacy can be in the main, so anyone can go on this board. Private, so only select people who you choose to give access to can come on this board. Or shareable, if you want to share this externally, you can do. I don't see why you would. And then select what you're managing in this board. This is just a terminology thing. So if you put candidates, that's fine, and go ahead and press create board. So now we have a place essentially already to store information. So at the moment, it kind of feels like, and it will look like a Google Sheet or an Excel spreadsheet, but we are going to make it more complicated than that. We are going to improve it. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to move the date column across, and I'm going to change the name to date created. And then what I'd do is, if you're on the professional version, just restrict the column editing. This means that no one can make any changes to it. Then go to automate in the top right hand corner. And then what we're going to do is create a new automation, start from scratch. And then we're just going to say when item is created, we're going to set the date, and the date created being today. So this allows us to manage every single new record that's created on our board. We know the day in which it was created. Okay, so again, this is all pretty simple stuff. The next thing we're going to want to do is maybe add another date column. So another date column, just press the plus button and press date as the option. And then we'll probably say date hired, or we could just do actually just date closed. Just call it date closed for the time being. Again, same principle applies. We're going to hide the column summary, and then we're going to go ahead and restrict the column editing. And then what we'll also do is add a formula column. So press plus button again, go formula, and then click into this, go to the AI assistant. And then we just want to search, or no, we don't want to search. We want to tell the AI assistant, give me the difference in days between the date created and the date closed columns. Now, the reason we're doing all of this, just in case you're confused, is so we can manage when was a new applicant added to our system, when did they either get rejected or they got hired, and then also how long does it take between the day that they're created or the new applicant comes in to the day in which they're closed. At how many days, and then we can get an average time to hire, which is a really important metric. So what's the average time to fulfill a role within your organization? Very rare do people track such information, but this is so important, because if you can say, right, our average time to hire for X particular role is X number of days, so that then you have an indicator of how many days until that person is going to be starting within your business. And then you've got an average time to onboard, which we might come on to later, and then you'll know how many days it's going to take from you needing a new job you needing a new employee to actually having them fully functional within your organization. So that's quite useful information. Just press set formula here, and then I'm just going to call this formula TTC. And then what I'll do is I'll hide the column summary, and then I'm just going to restrict the column editing as well. So this is pretty self-explanatory stuff. You can see here that the date created is 22nd of May. It's the 23rd today. You can see that that is now equal to 1 day. You can make this as small as you want. It's entirely up to you. Just hide it out of the way. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is obviously your stages throughout the recruitment process. So this typically should be standardized. You should have new applicant, CV screening, interview number 1, interview number 2. You might have another step, and then they're either hired or they're rejected. So we're going to build that out first and foremost in this status column here. So the first thing, and the default label is going to be new, because every single applicant that comes into this board here is going to be a new applicant. The red we'd probably use as rejected, and then we'll add some more labels. So yellow might be CV screened. I don't know. This is up to you. Again, you can follow my advice on what we are doing here, but you don't have to. It's entirely up to you. You can have your own kind of set of stages. So we've got CV screened. The green is going to be accepted. We'll then add another, and we'll say interview number uno, and then another one, which is going to be interview dos, number 2. And then, I don't know, you might have like a negotiation or in contract stage. Yeah, let's do that, because people at various stages of the pipeline might decline you as well. So you may be rejected or they may reject you. So that's typically how I do it. Whether you have CV screened or not, that's kind of up to you, I suppose. New, CV screened, interview 1, interview 2, in contract, accepted, and then rejected. It's very similar, and it always makes me laugh. The lead process and the sales process is practically identical to the hiring process, just in reverse. You're bringing people into the business, various stages associated. People drop off at various different stages of the process, and at the end of it, the only difference is you're giving money out as opposed to getting money in. So now we've set up our status options. I might just change this CV screen to, let's say, an orange color. There we go. And then what we'll do, and the important thing to note here, is we'll make the groups the same. So we're going to go ahead and change the top group to new, and then we'll change this to our dark gray. And then what we've got is CV screened. And then we can make that the orange color we selected, and then we'll go blue was interview number 1. Look at me with my colors today. I'm remembering. It's a miracle. And then interview number 2 was in purple. I mean, spoke too soon. Interview number 2, and then that's going to be in the purple here. And you can see why this is kind of like easy to follow, right? So in contract is the darker green. Might change that to gold actually. Let's go gold, and then on here, I don't know why. Gold, and then we've got accepted, and then that's going to be in the lighter green, and then we've got rejected as well, which is unfortunately rejected, going to be red. Now some people might actually have a couple of different rejected options. So you might have a rejected dash internal, and then you might have rejected dash external, because sometimes or often the employee will reject you, so they don't want to be hired by your organization. So, and that's probably worth noting as well. So either you have that in the status column, or rejected dash internal, so that suggests that you rejected them, or rejected dash external, they rejected you. That's probably worth tracking. Again, I'm setting all of this up for reporting purposes. So if you're questioning why are we doing all of these groups when we've already got the status column, this massively helps us with reporting functionality later down the line. So I'll come on to the reporting stuff later on in the video, but I'm just kind of, again, the same with the date created, date closed, and the TTC. I'm future proofing us, so when we want to report on information, we can do. Now the next thing we want to do, this is pretty straightforward, is when the status changes to a particular status option, it needs to move to the representative group. So we're just going to go to automate in the top right hand corner, go to manage, create automation, and then it's pretty self-explanatory. When the status changes to, let's say status changes to new, move item to group, new, create automation, and we're just going to follow that through. So again, when the status changes to CV screen, move item to group, CV screen, there we go, create automation again, status changes to interview 1, move item to group, interview 1, create automation. Just what we've got next, status changes to interview number 2, I'm guessing, interview number 2, move item to group, interview number 2, and then create automation again when the status changes to in contract, move item to group, in contract. I know this is very repetitive. I hope you're following along, otherwise it's going to be very bored. You might have to skip ahead. When status changes to accepted, move item to group, accepted. One pertinent thing to note here. Earlier, we created that date close column, but we never actually set up an automation. This is the time to do it. So we actually, on this, we'd actually just add another step. So it's when, then move item to accepted, then set date to date, or set date close to today. The reason being is we want to tell Monday.com that they've been accepted. This was the date in which they were accepted. or it was at least closed. I mean, you might have accepted and then completed, but and then, yeah, I don't know. It's up to you, the stages. Hopefully you just get the idea. Hopefully. When status changes to rejected, then move item to group rejected, and then we'd obviously add another status column, set date. Now we're going to use the same date close column, but because they're in separate groups, it allows us to report on that information very easily. It's very, very helpful. That's, again, another reason why we use the groups. So now if I change item number 3 to accepted, they are going to move down to our accepted group down here. The date closed is automatically going to be set. We can see that it took 1 day from the applicant coming in to them actually closing. Cool. Very simple. So we can then, I'm just going to hide the column summary on the status, and now we need to pad out our candidates board with all of the relevant information that we would need to capture for a candidate. So again, some of this is pretty obvious. You would have, let's say, text column. You could have a first name, last name. So you can have just the full name on the candidate's item here. So let's say we've got Nick Boardman, great spelling of my own name there, Boardman, as a full name. If you wanted to, for example, email them and or mass email or send an automated email, you wouldn't want to say, hey, Nick Boardman. I mean, you could do, but it never looks that good. So you might split out first name and last name into different columns. So let's just do that. Last name, text column, last name. And then the other stuff you'd add, just real basic stuff, is obviously their email address, probably their phone number as well. There we go. Phone number. So that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm trying to think what else. What I would do, and this is probably going to be something that we come on to later as we get more advanced throughout this video. But one thing worth adding is a text column. And then this text column is going to be the job reference that they've applied, job ref dot. So, and this is kind of a recommendation more generally as well. When you create a job on, let's say, LinkedIn or Indeed or any other place that you're creating or posting a job, the job should have its own unique reference, but the reference should be internal. Even if you're only posting one, I mean, if you're only posting one job, I won't worry too much about this. But if you're posting a few jobs every month, have a job reference number that is unique to the organization. I know, let's say LinkedIn and Indeed give you a job reference number, but the LinkedIn and the Indeed posts are identical posts, yet the reference number is different. So I would have an internal job reference number. So I know that Nick Boardman has applied for job reference number 53, whatever that is. And then we can filter by those job reference numbers, and then later on in this video I'm going to come on to why this is going to be even more helpful. You can have files, so this could be the CV, so be their CV. You can reposition that accordingly, and then if there's anything else that you want to add, let's say a long description, or it's called a long text column, then you can move that across. Where's that gone? Just hit refresh again. This keeps happening in my videos. There you go, long text. Whether that's like a cover letter, description, or something along those lines. I'm trying to think what other data points that they typically capture on the form. There might be some experience stuff that you map over to like an experience column. So how many years have they been doing a particular thing? Again, it's entirely up to you. Now you're probably wondering, well, how does the data actually come into the system? So either you can use the drop down menu on the right hand side of the new candidate button, and you can import candidates. So you could export from CSV and then import into monday.com directly. That's option number 1. My preferred option would be to treat this in exactly the same way as lead capture. So if you can, you would integrate Indeed. Indeed's definitely possible to integrate with. I don't know about LinkedIn's job recruitment system. I know if you're paying the premium version, you can do, but essentially when a new applicant is created or a new applicant comes in, you treat it as a lead. It automatically comes into your candidates board via an integration. Whether you do that via a third-party integration tool like Zapier, I know there's some integrate options up the top here. In fact, if we search for Indeed, should we just see if it exists? No, it doesn't, but it's definitely possible to do. So new applicants come in, via Indeed, they automatically populate inside of monday.com on our candidates board. By doing that, you're going to save yourself an enormous amount of time. Everything's live as well. And of course, by the way, you can add more columns. I'm sure I've already mentioned this, but if there's other data points that you want to track, you can just press the plus button and then you've got all of these columns available to you. Just scroll through. And if there's, unique data points for a candidate, then that's fine. But what is also important to note is this candidate board is going to be responsible for all of the applicants for all of your different job roles. So you're going to have a lot on here, and it can become a little bit complex over time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this a step further and we're going to go ahead and create a jobs board. Now, the reason we're going to do this is because jobs and candidates by definition are separate. So you would create a job and then you would have or want to track the total number of candidates associated with a particular job. A job can be up for a certain amount of time, and that's where you want to track the job related information as well. So like what responsibility is the job? What's the salary of the job? When's the starting position? What's the location? Are they remote? Start date, end date, etc., etc., etc. And then you've got candidate information, which is more the first name, last name, email address, their CV. And then you go through the interview process with that particular candidate, going through stage by stage. Now, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the speech bubble on the left-hand side, what you can do is you can write updates about this particular candidate, which probably could be or will be very helpful. So let's say I spoke with them, good initial convo, blah, 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 blah. God, spelling this morning, terrible. Yes. I don't know, hit update. And then also what I could do is I could at someone else in our organization, just say, hey, Alex, this looks good. Please proceed with interview uno number 1. Hit enter, reply. This is a Twitter-esque or X-esque feature, so it's called updates within monday.com. You can message different people, they can like it, they can reply to it, they can engage with it as well. You can add gifs, but this is a great way of communicating about your candidates. But let's go ahead and create a jobs board now. So we're going to go ahead, press plus button, top left-hand corner here, and go ahead and create another board. This is going to be called our jobs board. I'll leave it as main, and then I'll just change the custom to jobs as well, and go ahead and press create board. So now that is loaded, we start again. We're fresh. So the first thing again I'm going to do is date created, restrict column editing, as exactly as we did before. So date created, add another date column, and then it might be date completed, and then hide column summary, and then restrict column editing. Now this is a pertinent point to note. And I mentioned earlier about how we were tracking the date in which an applicant came in to the date in which they closed or became an employee. But that doesn't actually account for the time in which it takes to fill a role. So they're actually different metrics entirely, because obviously the time in which a candidate goes from new to accepted versus the time in which a job takes to fill a role is very different, obviously, right? So what we would do is same again, AI assistant, date created, date completed, run the formula, give me the difference in time, difference in days between date created and date completed. Hit enter. Hopefully that gives us the right formula again. Thank you, Monday. Fantastic work, Mr. AI. And then again, I'll just call this TTC. Hide the column summary, restrict the column editing, restrict column editing. And then let's just set up those automations. So automate again, create from scratch. When item created, then set date to today. Date created to today, and then we'll do the date completed one as we set up the stages for the job role. So again, the job is different. This is where we track job information, like who is the hiring manager, what department is it for. So person, hiring manager, we can use that as a person column. Let's say status column is just going to be our different stages. So slightly different for jobs, I guess. I'm just trying to think what the most applicable various stages are. So upcoming, or often what companies do is they'll have a form and people can submit job requests to the form. So we might have new requests, and that goes to the HR department or a department or someone to approve. And then we've got, and then they go new requests, active or live jobs. And then we might have closed jobs, and then unhired jobs, I guess. Kind of just making it up. Closed jobs, but again, so we go closed, new, and then what else could we have? Active, probably put active in a different color. Let's go for the purple. And then we've got unhired or cancelled roles, just in red, for example. So again, it's up to you how you want to do it. This is just me making it up on the spot, so the pressure is on a little bit. But let's say new, we've got active jobs. So active being jobs that are live on the job marketplace. So whether that be LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever else, the job opening is live. We've then got closed, which closed indicates that we've hired, and then we've got cancelled, which means that unfortunately, for whatever reason, either we changed our minds on that job posting or we couldn't find a suitable candidate. Again, you can have other options. It's entirely up to you. I know I'm reiterating that over and over again, but you can do. So now let's run through the automations for the status option again. So automate, top right hand corner, go to create automation. And then when status changes to new, move item to group, new, create automation, and then we're going to run through them all again. So create automation, when status changes to active, move item to group, active, create automation, when status changes to, and this is where we would obviously use the date column, when status changes to closed, move item to group, closed, and set date to date completed, or set date completed to today. Yeah, that's what I was going for. And then finally, when status changes to cancelled, then move item to group, cancelled, and set date completed to today. Create automation. Cool. So again, this is another pipeline, the jobs and the candidates. Now we're going to add some further information. So the text column is going to be the job reference number, job ref. So this is your internal job ref. Now, the reason we've got it on both the jobs board and the candidates board is because we're defined. So this is going to be IT consultant, or let's just go for something simple, marketing assistant. There we go, hit enter. Our job ref internally is 5322, whatever. And then on the candidates, every time a new candidate comes in, we automatically want that to pull from Indeed or LinkedIn and then directly populate into our job reference record or job reference column on here. Because then what we can do is we can run an automation that then automatically connects a candidate to a job, and then we've got a relationship between the two, so we can see which candidates are for which jobs. On top of that, you might have a couple of labels, so we can add a couple label columns here. So this might be department, for example, and then whichever department that this is for. So I'm just going to keep this simple, marketing. We might have, let's say sales, finance, finance, what we call them. I'm only joking. And there we go. So you just got a few options like that. And then also, if you want to have a numbers column, you could have salary. You could even have, if you wanted to, so also just press the three dotted button, go to customize, and you can select the dollar, the euro, the pound, or whatever unit or currency you're working in. You could have bottom range salary and then top range salary as well if you wanted to, and just have two separate columns. But I'm just going to leave it as is for the time being. I'll hide the column summary. You could also go ahead and put in where you've posted the job. So I would use a drop down column for this. And then posted locations, and then for example you might have LinkedIn, Indeed, and then you probably have things like, I mean, you might do, who knows these days, newspaper, magazines, etc, etc, etc. I don't know if that's too much of a thing of the past, but then what you can do is you can report on job postings as to where you posted them as well. So you can see obviously LinkedIn, Indeed, newspaper. Now, one thing I did forget to mention on the candidates board, so I'm just going to track back to that quickly, is we'll add a label column, which is source. And then this is going to be the source of where this particular person came in. So this needs to be realistically, this should be defined on your integration or when you're doing the import. But then on the source, we would have LinkedIn, we'll have Indeed, and then just for congruency's sake, we'll have newspaper as well. So then you can see the number of candidates by source, and then you can get further into the details and the reporting of We actually hire more people from newspapers, but we get the least number of candidates, but they're the highest quality. You can go into that granularity and detail level of reporting later on down the line if you want to. So you can see posted location, salary, department, job reference, files. If you want to attach any files, that might be a great example, the actual job description. Just job description. Hiring manager, that will come in automatically. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to take into consideration. So we've got our marketing assistant job role. And I'm sure there will be other data points that you can think of that you would manage on your jobs. So again, just to reiterate, I want to be super clear here. Jobs is for tracking job related information, such as the salary, such as the department in which it is for. You can create a form by pressing plus button at the top left hand corner, create a new form that you can share internally within the organization, and then people can submit job requests. So I want to hire for this particular person. They can they'll automatically populate in the new group. You can then review this, and then you can obviously post it and go live with it. You can liaise with this particular person who's the hiring manager regarding this particular role as well, to get the job description and other information, salary, etc., etc. So you can do that using the updates function here. But again, if there's anything else that you need to add in, you're more than welcome to. Now, one pertinent point to note here is we're going to go ahead and create a connection column between the candidates and the jobs. So we'll press an add column, and then we're going to search for connect boards column here. And then we're going to connect between the candidates and the jobs, and we're going to make sure we press create two-way connection. So that means that the relationship shows up on both sides, so both candidates and jobs. Then we go ahead and press connect boards. So this is going to be called candidates. Obviously this would be plural. I'll move this across here, and then if we go to our candidates board, we've actually got the job column here, and I'll just call this job, and then in this instance we'll move this back across. So now if I click in, I can see and then say that this person, so Nick Boardman, and let's just say Alex, for example, also applied for the marketing assistant role, and that can be done manually, just as I've done now. But with the job reference, and this is where it gets really, really clever, is where the job reference matches on the jobs board as it does on the candidate's record when a new record is created, then they'll automatically connect with one another. And you can do this by going to automate in the top right hand corner here, and then go to create. And then what we want to do is search where. And then what we're looking for is when an item is created in this board, being the jobs board, being the candidates board, connect this item where this column matches this column in another board, the other board being the jobs board, and the column match is obviously going to be the job reference. So I'll show you now. So if we go another board, and it's going to be jobs, and then we'll hit jobs. This column is going to be job reference. This column is going to be the job reference on the candidates board. And then we're going to connect via the connection column we've just created. So now every time a new record is created where the job reference matches the job reference on the jobs board, they automatically connect with one another. So we're able to see all of the candidates for that particular job. Now you can see here I've connected both Nick and Alex to that job. So if I go to our jobs board, you'll be able to see both the candidates, the number of candidates here. So hopefully you're beginning to see how the candidates and the jobs work one another. Obviously adding new candidates, you can move them through the process. If they come in manually, you can add them, or if it's automatic, that's absolutely fine as well. Now, some other pertinent information to note is we can mirror data over from the jobs board onto the candidates board. So as you can see here, we've got the job. If we press the three dotted button and go add column to the right and select the mirror column, if you can't see it, just search for the mirror column and hit add to board. What we can do is we can connect the mirror column to the connection column, and then we can mirror over data. So if I want to see the hiring manager for this job, so I go hiring manager, I can do. And then what I can do is on the jobs board, if I change the hiring manager to myself, for example, that will automatically update on here. It's very, very easy to do using the mirror column, and then we'll be able to see who's responsible for this particular job. So you can manage a lot more on the candidates board through the mirror columns as well. Obviously you have the job, you have the connection with the candidate, and then you can mirror the information here as you want to. And it just makes it easier to see what's going on. Again, if I go ahead, three dotted button, add column to the right mirror, I could also add, let's say, the department that it relates to. And then we go ahead, hit all labels, and you can see here, if I go, I'll just change the name to department, hit enter. And then if I go to jobs, and then change the department to sales, for example, or this actually is for marketing. So let's get it right and put marketing, and then go to candidates. You can see that the department for this particular job and these candidates is marketing. I can then filter as well. So I can use filter functionality at the top here. Let's say we've got loads of different or loads of different candidates. I can say, show me where the department is equal to marketing, and it will show me all of the candidates for marketing, irrespective of if they are for different jobs. It will still show you the different candidates for the marketing department. So hopefully this is coming along nicely, beginning to make sense. I'm just going to remove the filter we added a moment ago, so just close that down now. And then the next thing I want to do is go through the actual employee management or the employee onboarding. So when a candidate actually gets accepted, we then need to put them through the employee onboarding process. We'll also have a board for employees. So we're going to go ahead, press the plus button. We're going to go ahead and create a new board at the top here, and we're going to call this employees. Again, main or private. In most instances, this is going to be a private board. You do not want people to have access to everyone's salaries, their private number, private email, etc., etc. And then I'm just changed the naming convention to employees and hit create board. Cool. So what's going to happen now is obviously the new board is going to populate, and then we're just going to go ahead and set it up accordingly. Again, I'm going to keep this relatively simple, but we'll go through it nonetheless. So the first thing we're going to want to do is obviously our date created and then date closed or left, date, I don't know. Yeah, so let's go with date created first. Date created, 3-dotted button, and then restrict column editing, and then automate, top right hand corner, go to manage, create automation, and then we're saying obviously when item created, set date, and then that's going to be the date created to today, create automation. Awesome. And then again we'll go another date column, and then this time is going to be, so the date created is essentially when they've joined the business, or date started, I suppose, ish. And then date left, retire. Should we just put date retired? It sounds better. Sounds a lot better than date fired, right? So I put date retired. You can call it whatever you want. And this implies the day in which they have left the organization. Again, why do we do this? Because we get the average amount of time an employee stays within the organization. To take it a step further, we can get the average amount of time an employee stays within the organization per role, per department, per salary as well, if you wanted to. So we would, again, use the formula column, and then we go AI assistant, give me the difference in days between date created and date retired columns. Hit enter. Awesome. Again, it's the basics like this that really make a difference, but again, it's really important for reporting. I'm going to call this TTR, time to retire. God, that'd be nice. That came around quickly. And then I'll restrict the column editing again, and then just make that a little bit smaller. So we've got date created, date retired. We then want to obviously go through our groupings. So onboarding, hit enter, or employee onboarding. Yes, because every single employee that comes in is going to start in the onboarding phase. So employee onboarding. We're then going to have, I guess, active employees. And then we'll have, let's keep it friendly, retired employees. We'll make it green. And then it looks good. You can add additional groups like suspended employees, garden leave employees if you wanted to. Stuff like that. Again, I'm not going to, you get the idea. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. Just different groups. The stages of, or the status at least then needs to match. So we would have onboarding. We would have active, and then we would have retired. Funny. 3-dotted button, delete this label, change this to purple. There we go for that one there. And then again, same principle applies, hide the column summary, and then we'll just create the status option. So automate status, create automation when the status changes to onboarding, move item to group, employee onboarding. And we're going to get a little bit more fancy in a minute with the onboarding stuff. When status changes to active, move item to group, active. And then when people retire, create automation. When the status changes to retired, move item to group, retired, and then set date obviously date retired to today. There we go. Cool. So now we've again set up our basic information. Now, important things to note here is what we'll do is we'll have a job reference number on the employees board. So I'm just going to add a text column, and then it'll be a job ref. Now, every single job ref should be unique to one job role. So if you have, this relates to the jobs board as well, if you have exactly the same job, you need to post it twice with different job references, okay? So if you hire a marketing assistant in January, and then 6 months later you hire another marketing assistant, and the existing one's still with you, even if they are or aren't, and you hire another one in, let's say, June, you need to create a new job record. That job needs to have its own unique reference number, obviously, because the candidates are also going to be different as well. And I'll show you why in a moment. So the job reference, what we're going to do is we're going to create a connection column between the job and the employees board, and then we go ahead, select boards, and then we're going to connect to the jobs board. Again, create a two-way connection, and then job, it's going to just be job. And then on the jobs board, what we can do is you can see here that connects to the employees, but actually it's going to be employee, and this is the hired candidate for this particular job, okay? And I'll show you how all of this works in a moment. If I can move this across, there we go. Sorry. And then employees, a lot of information is actually going to pull from the jobs board, so there's not so much that we need to worry about. What we do need to add on here, though, is candidate related information. So we press the plus button, we would add, let's say, a phone number, we would add email, we would probably add some other bits and pieces as well. Anything that exists on the candidate's record realistically needs to pull across. So like, say, CV, for example, that should pull across from the candidates to the employees. And I'll show you what I mean by pulling across in a moment. Might be actually worth having source on the employees board as well. So you, again, this is helpful information. Not necessarily, actually, maybe not. Forget that bit. First name, last name, you can do. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but you can see the basic information about the employee pulls across. Okay, we've got the job ref, phone, their email, first name and last name on the employee onboarding here. What we can do on the employee onboarding, and obviously every employee needs to go through onboarding, is we can automate basic onboarding setup using sub items within Monday. Now, if you're not familiar, if you hover over the item, any item within Monday, you've got this grey arrow here, and these are sub items. So sub items are essentially tasks associated with an item. So I'm going to call this AA and I'm going to call this BB. But let's use a good example for the marketing assistant. So add to Instagram, and then add to HubSpot, as an example. Okay, so these are things that need to be done to get this particular employee onboarded. I guess like add to payroll system, hit enter as well. And what we can do is obviously have status options. So to do, this is just like a basic to-do list, doing, and then we have done as well. And then what we could also have is, let's say, in black, we can have not applicable, because there might be some instances where we have a standardized employee onboarding, but not everything needs to be done for every employee. And then what we can do is we can go settings, show summary on parent item. We'll call this onboarding status. This is a little trick of the trade, well, I'm not sure about that. But you've got like doing, let's say I've added them to Instagram, we're in the process of adding them to Instagram, adding them to HubSpot is done. I've added them to the payroll system. And then this is not applicable. This is not applicable. So now we can see the onboarding status. If we press the three dotted button on the status option, go to customize status column, we can say choose which colors indicate an item is completed. So if we've got NA, the black selection would need to be, obviously this needs to indicate that it's being completed as well. And then this is really helpful. You've got the date in which it needs to be done, the person that it's assigned to, and then you can add, let's say, a long text column on here, and then this can be just like on a basic description of the task that needs to be done to get this particular person onboarded. Now, what you can do to take this a step further is go to automate in the top right hand corner, create an automation that says when item created, then create sub items. And then the sub item can be add to FB. I don't know, I'm going to make it up. Sub item again. And then we could go add P45 if you're based in the UK. Sub item again. This is just tasks essentially for onboarding. So it'll be introduction meeting. And then you can add the description. So this is information, and then what you can do is create this automation. So I'm going to hit create. You can obviously add as many sub items as you want. You can change them as and when, but when a new employee gets added, what will happen is it will automatically populate the sub items for the onboarding process for that particular employee. Now you can take this even further if you want to and have this a variable based on, let's say, whether they're in the marketing department, the finance department, the sales department, etc., etc. You can say when item is created and only if status is equal to X, then create the different sub-item onboarding steps, and it can be different based on different departments. Obviously, there'll be more nuance for different roles as well, but this could be like a general function or a general onboarding process. And then once they're ready, you would move them obviously into active, or that's switch that to onboarding, switch that back to active. That will move them into the active group. And then they're an active employee within the organization. There's nothing that needs to be done. Obviously, more advanced employee reporting and things like that you could manage within monday.com. I'm not as well versed in what you would need to look for, the data points that you would need to manage, but it's all possible. Now the next thing that I want to focus on is automatically getting candidates from the candidates board into the employees board. So you can do so going to the candidates board here, then go to automate in the top right hand corner, and then what we want to do is we want to run an automation that says when the status is equal to accepted, then we want to create that item on the employee board. So we go create automation, top right hand corner, and we go when this happens, and go when status being status changes to accepted, then create item on the board. Oh no, sorry, wrong one. Then create item in board, the board obviously being the employees board. The item is going to be, and as you can see, all of the data points from the employees board, or all of the data points from the candidates board, then can map to the employees, vice versa. You kind of get the idea. So name is going to be name. Person doesn't necessarily need to be person. Status shouldn't be status, just to bear that in mind. Job reference, job ref, phone, email, CV, date created wouldn't be date created. Press done, and then press create automation. So now what we'll do is we'll quickly create our new record, or we'll just use the existing one. So Nick Boardman, spelling shocking, Nick at crmcrew.com. Phone number is 123456. CV, this is cover letter, and then source as well. I don't think we mapped a source, but we can do. Just one thing to bear in mind with this is we've got this job reference. Let's just make sure that this job reference matches on the jobs board. So where's our job reference? Let's say it's this one here. Now what I want to do before we change the status of the Nick Boardman candidate from wherever we are, let's say we're in interview one at the moment, to to accepted, which would move them to the employees board, I want to add another automation and go to employees, and I want to go automate, go where, create, and then where, and then give this a minute to load. Come on, man. There we go. Where, and then when an item is created in this board, connect the, so we've already done this in an earlier in this video, connect to the other board being the jobs board. And you can see here we've got jobs. This column is going to be job reference, connects to this column, job reference, connection. So what we're saying is when the candidate status changes to accepted, it's going to create a new record on the employees board. It's going to pull over the job reference, and then automatically, because the job reference is going to be the same on the candidates as it is on the job record, or there will be a match, then it's going to, the employee record will connect to the job record. So now we've set all of this up. Let's test it, see if it works. So interview one, change the status to accepted, and hopefully what will happen is a new record's created. The job reference populates, the job then automatically connects, as you can see here, because the job reference matches. Our onboarding process has started, or at least the items for the onboarding process have automatically populated. And then on the jobs board, we can see the employee for this particular job. I can then change the status of this job to closed because we've now had a successful hire. What we can do, if you want to take this a step further, is for the employee, you can restrict the column editing, and then you can go automate, and then you go create automation and go when column changes, column being the employee, then change status, the status column, to closed. So this implies that the employee column will never change unless there has been a hire. The only way we'll ever know if there's been a hire is if there is a record created on the employees board, and then once that happens, it will automatically change the status of the job to closed. So I told you this video was going to get sophisticated, okay? And then we'd leave that restricted. Just be mindful though that if I've got this inactive and this, let's put this in new, for example, if I then change this will then cause the status to change to closed because it's changed, not when it's added. So, but if you've got it locked, it doesn't matter anyway, but just take that into consideration. So we've now got the connection, or at least I'm going to reconnect it. Let's just reconnect them again. So Nick Boardman. And that is it pretty much. If I hover over to the jobs board here, or this is the job connection, sorry, I've just moved it over. What I can also do again is I can add mirror columns. So if I want to add a mirror column for a job, so I go connect and then to the job, and then I want to mirror over the hiring manager. And then this is obviously mirroring over from the hiring manager. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, this is mirroring over the hiring manager from the jobs board. Again, I can add more information via a mirror as well. So add column, add board, and then go job, and then drop down department. So now I can see very easily, I've got my employee onboarding, the department, the hiring manager that was associated with this. I can put this here. I can see the status of my onboarding. If I want to filter by filter, show me all of the employees in the marketing department, I can do column drop down. I can just scroll through here, go to department is equal to marketing. This will show me all of my marketing employees. Pretty self-explanatory stuff once you get your head around it. I know we've covered a lot, but this is the setup that I would go for. This is what I would use for my own business. And I do think there is a lot of merit in using this for yours as well. Now, the next thing, unfortunately, the final thing I want to cover in this video is reporting functionality. So if we go to the plus button up the top here, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new dashboard. So a dashboard, and I'm just going to call this recruitment dashboard. Again, can be made or private, entirely up to you. This is going to consolidate all of the different data sources, and by data sources I mean candidates, jobs, and employees, funnel the data into one place that we can then chop it, switch it up, do what we want with it, and create nice pretty reports, graphs, etc, etc. So employees, jobs, candidates, hit enter, done. Now the first widget I'm going to do, add widget, top left hand corner, and I'm going to add a numbers widget. It's going to be average time to hire candidate. So we go to three dotted button, go to settings, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use the columns. It's going to be one by one. What I would do first actually is just go to boards, and we just want the candidates board for this particular example. Go to numbers column. The TTC is time to close, obviously. Customize, what we want is the average. Manual would be 0 because it's number of days. Average time to hire a candidate boards, that's fine. And then it'll be the only group that we want here is the accepted group. So close all of these others down. So this gives us our average time to hire a candidate. So if we go over here, we've got myself. The date closed, the date created was 24th of May. The date closed was the 23rd of May. How that's happened, I don't know. But let's just change this to the 30th. Let's just change this one to the 26th. And you can see that's a 4 and a 6 for these two hires. If we go to our recruitment dashboard, we've then got a 4. What we can do is go to the three dotted button, go to settings, customize, and then just put on the right and then the number of days. So you can see the average time to hire a candidate is 4 days. Now that's actually a really interesting metric. Again, I discussed this earlier and the importance of setting up these formula columns. And you can kind of go as crazy as you want with all of this. Again, another widget that I'd add numbers is average time to close a job. And then what we go and do is three dotted button, go to settings. In this instance, the board that we want is the jobs board, not the candidates or employees board. So I'd untick these two, go to numbers one by one. And then in this instance, it's going to be TTC. And then we go to customize. We want an average manual. We don't want any decimals, and then just put days. And then I'll put that on the right hand side here. So on average, the time to close the job is 2 days. Board, and then what we would want is to remove the cancelled, active, and new. So we just want the closed grouping. Again, this is why the grouping is really important. So we can filter using this. And then boards, yeah, Customize, yeah, average, happy with that. Numbers, yeah, that's fine. So if I go to our jobs board now, and then I add another job, and then I set the date created as, let's say we posted this back on the 1st of April. The date completed is today. That gives me 52 days. Change the status to closed as well. You'll see on our recruitment dashboard, it should at least update. If I go to jobs, yeah, it's just moved across. The average time to close a job is 27 days. The average time to hire a candidate is 4 days. Let's add another widget, just get even more sophisticated. Go to the 3-dotted button. And then what we can do is go to boards. And then for this one, I want employees. So playing on the joke we made earlier, average time for an employee to retire, or average time to retire, I suppose we could have put. And then we'll say groups, retired employees only. The numbers is going to be 1 by 1. It's going to be TTR. Customize is going to be our average, manual. We don't want any decimals, right hand side, and then days. And then apparently it takes 0 days for an employee to retire. Now, that would be nice. But you get the idea. If I go to employees, I change myself here. Let's say date created was 17th, and then date retired was the 23rd. 67 days until I retire, and then I go to my recruitment dashboard. You can see how that then reflects as an average. Obviously, if I add more people, then the average will drop and change accordingly. So what else could we do? Another one that I think people might find useful is if you go to numbers again, your 3-dotted button, go to settings, and then on this one, what we want is let's do employees first, and then we go average employee salary. Now this is actually be quite a useful one. Go to groups. You can leave all of these groups, in all fairness. You might want to look to remove retired because they're no longer working with you within the organization. When I say retired, people that don't work for you anymore, I mean in case you've skipped ahead. Customize, I would go average, manual. I would have just 2 decimals in this instance, and then I would obviously have the pound, or if you're working in the dollar, the dollar. And then the numbers would be 1 by 1, and then it'd be, no, did we add this? I can't remember actually. I don't think we did. I'm glad we brought this up. So if we would go back to the employees, I don't think we have the salary being mirrored across from the job record, or from the job. So we'll add another column to the right. It's going to be a mirror column. And in this instance, obviously we want to mirror over the salary. So job and then salary, hit enter, sum, or we can just leave it blank if we want. Salary, and then apparently this marketing assistant role doesn't have a salary, so let's go ahead and add one. Let's say it's 52,000, and then we'll add another one as well, so let's say 12,000, and this is just a different role that we have. And then go to employees. And then what we can do is I'll move this guy up here, put this as active. This one's also active, and I'll change this person's job to this one here. You can see that that gives them a salary of 12,000. Go to our recruitment dashboard, and then we can go back to our settings, and then obviously we'll want the salary. And then this is our average employee salary of 9,142.86. Now, if I go back to our jobs, obviously 12,000 is not an accurate representative of salary. So if I say 36,000, and then recruitment dashboard again, hopefully that should update. Yes, 12,000 doesn't sound right to me though. What's gone on here? Go back to employees. Let's have a little look. We've got salary, customize, sum, select sum. Does that fix our problem? 3-dotted button, settings. It's the salary mirrored over. Customize, average, yeah, manual, boards, employees, groups. That would be why. Because some of them equal to 0. that would be why. That still doesn't sound right to me though. An average 52 and 36. The average can't be 22,000. That's mathematically impossible unless I'm going completely crazy. On our jobs, 52, 36. Let's just delete these. Delete. See what happens. That might fix this problem. Oh, there you go. That sounds okay. So the reason that wasn't working is because there were some records on the employees board that weren't associated with the job. Thus, Monday.com assumed that the value was equal to 0. And this is working exactly how we want to now. So now we can see our average employee salary. Now, other stuff that we might want to add, let's say add another widget. Let's create a chart in this instance. And this is the jobs posted per month. So this is going to show us the number of jobs that we post per month. So go through, or at least create anyway. So go to settings, go to chart type, and then we just want a bar graph. In this instance, our x-axis is going to be one by one, just on the boards. Just make sure we unselect candidates and employees. Go to x-axis. Our x-axis is going to be the date in which the job was created. Now you can add an additional column on the jobs board which is or determines the date in which the job actually went live across all of the different platforms that you're using. But for this sake, let's just use what we've got already. So we've got the date created today, and then y-axis in this instance is just going to be the count. So this is the count of jobs created on a monthly basis. We can customize this if we want, edit the label, edit the colors. So if you're not a fan of the blue or whatever, you can change it. It's entirely up to you, or color all the same way. So let's go for a nice pinky red. Lovely. We can reset it as well, fortunately. You can select show top and bottom values only. Show empty values if there are any records that haven't got a value in them, which in this instance there isn't. We've got benchmark lines as well. So if we want to say, look, the number of jobs we want to post on a monthly basis is 10, for example, we can put that value in here and then minimum. And then we could add another benchmark line, which is the number of jobs is 20. And then we could call this, let's say, goal. And then you can see how far off we were per month on the number of job roles that we posted. So you get the idea there. If you want to remove them, you can do. It's quite self-explanatory. We've got boards. Obviously, we've just set that up. And then groups doesn't really matter in this instance because it's the number posted, irrespective of whether they're new, active, closed, or cancelled. This is the number that we posted anyway. So we then also got, add another widget. We could create the number of candidates the number of candidates created on a monthly basis. So again, we just have a standard bar chart. The x-axis is going to be date created, but we need to go to our boards first, unselect both jobs and employees. X-axis would be date created, and then our y-axis again is count items. Customize if you want, you can add the benchmark lines. The groupings again don't matter very much. So we can see here that candidates created per month. This is showing me the number of candidates that we've had this month. So this month we've had 5 candidates. What we can do is, if you want to take this a step further, is you can go ahead and add another widget. Let's create another chart. And this is going to be slightly more complicated again. Go to settings. And then in this instance, our chart type is going to be a stacked bar graph. And then what we want to do is unselect on the boards. We just want to unselect the jobs and the employees. So this is still for candidates. Our one by one, our x-axis is going to be date created. Our stacking by, so what we're stacking by in this instance, again, go to one by one, is going to be the job. So now we can see on a monthly basis how many candidates we've had per job. Now we can also expand this stack if we want to. So you can see that it shows slightly differently. The y-axis is going to be count items, and then you've got the customization functionality available to you if you want. Now the only difference between the expanded stack and not is if it's expanded, it looks like this per month. So you could have 10 active jobs, a load of different candidates that's going to show like this. But it can get quite messy or polluted, the graph can, over an extended time horizon or over an extended period of months. So you might choose to have it like this. So we can see here that we've had in total 5. 3 of them have come from a job that doesn't exist, or the candidates have no associated job to them. And then 2 have come from the marketing assistant job that we posted. Now, if we go back to our candidates here and I connect this one to AA, this one to AA, and then where's the other one that's missing? AA. And let's just call this, go to the jobs, change the naming just so it sounds like it makes a lot more sense. Who, let's say, are we hiring for? Let's say, who do I want to hire for? CEO, so I can retire. There we go. So we go to the recruitment dashboard. You can see here that I've had 3 applicants for my CEO role and 2 applicants for my marketing assistant role. And then we would just change the naming, be candidates per job per month. And then hit enter. And then, I mean, again, we can continue to go down the rabbit hole of reporting for as long as we so wish. But let's say we add one final chart for the sake of this video. This is going to be settings. And then for this one, the board is going to be the employees board. And what I want to know is the number of employees created on a monthly basis. So x-axis is going to be my date created. And then my y-axis is going to be my count items. And then you can see here, just go through everything else. You don't really need to worry about anything. The number of employees I've had is, in March I had 1 number employees per month. And then so I had 1 in March and then I had 1 in May. Let's just go to our jobs, make sure that makes sense. 17th of March, 26th of May. Yeah, that's looking good. And then I suppose what you could do is you could actually add another one. And then you could go settings and then chart type again. Let's go to boards. We will unselect jobs and jobs and candidates. That leaves us with employees. X-axis being date retired, and then the y-axis being our count. This will give us the number of employees that left the business or retired on a monthly basis. So number employees left, I'll just put retired per month. And then I'll change this one to joined, just so we're all clear. Joined. So we've had, you can see here what you can't do, or I don't think you can do anyway. I'm pretty certain, having used Monday.com for as long as I have, you can't have a downward. So downward. You can't have a graph going down and up. So I know I've seen graphs in the past where you've got a down bit where it's in red and then the green bit which is up, and then you can see the difference of how many have actually continued to stay and you continue to grow. But yeah, that's kind of it. I appreciate this is a lot of blue. We can click into this 3-dotted button, go to settings if we want to, like I mentioned earlier, customize this. Let's say I just want to go for a slightly different color. You can have this on here as well. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that's worthy of mentioning. If I go to my chart, what other graphs would I want to create? The number of jobs. Hopefully you get the idea. I think that's the important part. Is we started with the very basics of the candidates board. So we've come a long way through this video. Candidates, now we've got the jobs board, employees, and then obviously the recruitment dashboard as well. This is really helpful information. I can tell you now, the majority of businesses do not have any function or means of tracking this information. So if you can get this set up, you are miles ahead of them. Again, knowing information like the average time to hire a candidate, the average time to close a job, the average time for an employee to retire. I know that, and I know there's better naming conventions for this one, but you get the idea. What's the average tenure of an employee? This is all really helpful. You can also go steps further. Let's say on the jobs board, you want to add a new column. Let's say it's a label column. And this could be for seniority. And then if you're in larger organizations, especially, you could have a label per seniority. So I'm trying executive, VP, director, manager, and then I don't know what the bottom one is, the normal one. And then you could obviously report on the number of jobs posted by seniority, the average salary by seniority or type. You get it, you can expand on it, you can grow it. We can help you do that. If you would like us to help, check out the link below, click the button, apply for a meeting, and maybe we could have a chat. Hopefully this video has been helpful though, giving you an insight into what is possible within Monday.com, and also just managing the recruitment process and the employee process. There's a lot more to this as well. Obviously, I can't be overly nuanced in a video like this. I'm sure there's a lot of niche things for your business that we could apply. Integrating with the places that you generate your applicants from, that's obviously a key thing. And then obviously your process is going to be slightly different to someone else's. But I'm really hoping this gives you a good idea, or at least a good framework to get started. Thank you ever so much for giving this video a watch. Again, if you do need any help, check out the link below. Thank you and goodbye.